Here is some more information of what materials and techniques you could be using for your designs. The precedents that we saw give you a better idea of what the possibilities for construction are. We saw that you could make the shelter either out of some structural elements that are later covered in cladding in the exterior of the shelter. We saw also that you could use local materials for the construction of your shelter. For example, in the Philippines, after the last typhoon, people have been using the coconut trees that have been broken during the storm, and now they are reusing them to rebuild the shelters. In other places, people are using again wood or bamboo or some other local techniques which are available and people are comfortable building with. Remember, these are temporary shelters, so they don't have to be earthquake resistant, they don't have to be typhoon resistant, they need to be relatively simple and able to be built easily and fast and at low cost on the site. We are looking at different sites, different geographies and climates, so in this part you have to decide which climate you're working with and how are you going to personalize your proposal according to this climate. So for example, if you're working with hot tropical climate, maybe a solution in which you have ventilated roofs, so double layers of the roof, so that the wind can pass under the layers and provide natural ventilation and cooling of the roof would be possible. In hot climates, maybe it's worth leaving some openings in the lower part of the shelter so the air can flow in, and then some openings on the top part of the shelter so that the hot air can go out. As you know, the hot air tends to stay in the in the center and higher part of the shelter. So it would be good if you can have some openings in that area so that all the hot air can go out and then bring new cool air inside the shelter. This would allow for natural ventilation and natural passive cooling of the shelter that you're designing. If you're using materials as steel, for example, for the roof, you have to remember that steel heats up quite easily, and if the steel is exposed to the sun, as it happens in hot climates, then the space under the roof would be rather hot. In that case, you need to provide more height so that the hot air stays on the top and then eventually the ventilation takes it out, or maybe the double layer that we mentioned. Natural materials is wood and the leaves of palm trees that some people have been using in Indonesia and Malaysia and the Philippines are not heated that easily, so those materials provide a certain buffer for the hot air, for the heat and from the sun. Some of you decided to use green roofs, and that certainly helps to alleviate the heat and to protect the interior from the strong sun and heat. We want every shelter to be lit by natural light during the day and to have some solar panel or some solar panel which collects the sunlight and transforms it into electricity, charging a battery inside the shelter. So every shelter should be equipped by LED lights in the interior, and those should be part of the design and part of the budget for the construction of the shelter. At the same time, we are thinking about the safety of and comfort of the shelter. So they not only have to protect from the sun, but they also have to provide enough privacy. So whatever material you're using for the side walls, you need to make sure that that material provides enough safety and privacy for the people who are inside the shelter from the ones that are circulating around the shelter. When you are putting the shelter in a camp and around main streets, maybe it's better to leave some space between the road and the shelter, so you have certain privacy and certain distance between the street where the trucks and cars pass and all the people pass, and then the actual shelter. We saw many successful designs this weekend from the ones that you presented at our virtual meeting, and we saw many others on our Facebook group. So I'm really excited to see the work that you're doing, and we'll be helping you as much as we can with the design. You've been receiving feedback from Arnold, from Nestor, from Ioanni, from myself on our group, and we recently appointed 10 teaching assistants who will also be helping you in this design process. Whatever questions you may have, you can ask us, and we'll try to respond the best way that we can.